My name's Chris.
And I'm Christy.
This is the Washing Up Podcast. It's Bread Week.
Yeah, how you going, Bakerons?
Oh, God.
You know how, fan groups have names? Which I effing hate.
Yes.
I can't stand, but then...
Question, why did you say effing hate?
I don't know, I'm trying
You
to...
say felching all the time,
I
yet
know,
effing hate.
I'm trying to, make us classy. Oh, who the fuck am I kidding?
What?
Okay.
Classy? Fucking no.
And I don't know, but, last night as I was trying to get to bed, I'm just having all these, words come into my head about, what would Bake Off fans be called? And I'm like, Bakerons, like macarons, but Bakerons. And then I'm like, but they can't be Bakerons, because that's like Macron.
And we've already discussed that they're overrated.
I mean, as much as I am a fan of the French president after his scolding and snubbing of the Australian Prime Minister recently.
Yeah, who isn't?
Yes.
It can't be there. They're overrated, and it can't be that.
No.
And they're not overrated, because, we were talking, it was funny, I had a couple of people who tweeted me to talk about the fact they were really impressed with the pronunciation or the background on Bolo Bao, and the fact that they didn't, westernise it, because they talked about pineapple buns, but they Bolo Bao, and they talked about the pronunciation, and talked about background and heritage, etc., and they were like, unlike that Japanese week on a certain other show, right? And that's why Canadian Bake Off fans are not, in any way, shape or form, overrated.
No, they're magnificent, and we appreciate you. And because I just don't have a brain at the moment, I will be calling them pineapple buns, because I do apologise. But I just can't get
Doesn't matter.
a face around it
Look,
today.
Yeah, look, we're good with this anyway. Moving on.
Hold on, no, it's bullabao, isn't it?
Bolo Bao.
Bullabao.
Bolo Bao.
Bullabao.
Bolo
Bolo.
Bao.
Bow.
Yeah.
Bolo bow.
Yes.
Okay.
Well done.
Right.
Got there.
Just a bit Australian at the end with the bow.
France. So...
Here I am, Queen of Accents, struggling with the bullabao.
Yeah, well done. So, Bread Week, we open with a virtual reality Alan, which I loved the whole... It's Bread Week, and again, the Dan Levy joke at the end there.
It was beautiful. I think they could have squished a bit more into some virtual reality, giving him a Jamiroquai hat. Just really upping the stakes. But
Have the ground moving below him for no apparent reason.
But I do like to think that he is now in development of a virtual reality bake off app.
That
game.
would be good. I like the idea of this. Alan's World of Bake Off.
Yeah, you don't play as a contestant or a judge. You play as a host.
Yes.
Your aim is to
Contract negotiations for the next year.
is to reduce some pressure in the tent, to enliven a mood.
There's a little known sequence that you can get if you actually go with the right coding. Mm-hmm. There's a little known sequence that you can actually put together.
Yeah.
And if you put that sequence together, you end up with a contract deal in the US for a bunch of sitcoms and things.
Oh, that's fantastic.
No one's ever seen it before,
You
though.
could start your own production company.
Yeah, you could indeed. And you could run a long-standing sitcom. Maybe call it Alan's Puddle.
I like it. Alan's Puddle.
Alan's Puddle.
And it all takes place in a nice bed and breakfast.
Yep, bed and breakfast. 4-star rated.
Yeah.
Not 5.
Not 5.
4-star rated. No, that could be good. I like that idea. Anyway.
The other thing too is I would just be happy trying to get the triple pun score. Because,
Yes.
3 puns in a row.
Can I just say as well, and we say this every week, but I mean it from last night, Anne's entire fashion game last night.
Oh, beautiful.
Just beyond on point. Like, the fashion styler, and the stylist, the fashion, and we're going to hopefully have a bit of a conversation with people involved in that over the course of this series.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, if all those sort of ducks get in a row for us. But they nail it every week. They absolutely nail it every week, and Anne just wears everything so amazingly well.
To me, she was kind of like channeling Persephone. There was it was the Grecian hairband and all the florals, and then the cool, funky eye makeup. I mean,
Her eye makeup's insane.
I know.
In the best possible way.
Yes. And it's like futuristic eye makeup, but done so beautifully. That's the kind of eye makeup that you usually see someone, in a futuristic sci-fi show wearing. But now it's being worn just as everyday wear, and I'm here for it.
You are.
We're in the future.
We are in the future. Today.
We're beyond 2000.
So let's get into... Canadians won't get that. So let's go into the signature. Mm-hmm. So the signature was Bubka. Or, if you're a fan of the Great Australian Bake Off,
Panettone.
Don't really think we can explain it to our Canadian brethren.
No, just go back. Back.
Yeah.
Into the early days.
Into the early days of Great Australian Bake Off, where if we got to 4 weeks from the end and...
When the Wunderkind,
everyone had to make a Bubka.
He made a panettone.
And he made a panettone. And somehow didn't go home. Anyway, moving on. The Bubka... Now it didn't have to be sweet. It could be savoury or sweet. Mm-hmm. I loved, by the way, Amy's mentality on this, which was, I figured everyone would just be tired of sugar.
Yeah, obviously
so
not.
I went savoury. And again, Amy has spent, and we'll get into it in a bit more detail in a minute, but Amy has spent the last couple of weeks of this season winning my heart.
Even though she's blending Kermit into her bake.
Even though she was blending Kermit, and we'll come to what she did to Kermit in a moment. But her savoury over sweet, as you well know, just that wins me beautifully.
Yeah, see, I'm here for a sweet Bubka. I'm here just for Bubka
Bubka in general.
Yes.
Now, 2.5 hours to do this. Now let's get to... We're going to get into what everyone made obviously, and what happened. But we need to have a conversation. You see...
Aren't we already?
No, we need to have a serious conversation.
Oh.
We are also hopeful to talk to...
Does that mean I have to, take off the clown nose?
No, leave it on.
Okay.
We're also here to talk about... We hope to have a conversation with the amazing artist who does these sensational works of art.
Oh, there was an article that was released.
They've put that out before, but they put it out again for this week.
Yep.
So, and we hope to get them on the podcast and have a bit of a chat. We've got sort of irons in the fire on that one. But last night... And I don't know if it was on the broadcast, but not on CBC Gem.
There was no text.
There was no text, which was great. Because you could make up the names of the bakes for whatever you wanted to call the damn thing, right up until the point they served it where the name was there.
Like Vincent's, for example, I was just saying, Starman making Bubka in the sky.
And again, as we said before, when it came to Amy's, it's not easy being green. I mean... It's a really good name for it. Blended Kermit was the other one you had there. So, I felt for Stephen. Because Stephen was... Every year you get a contestant in Bread Week who admits that they're not really a bread maker.
No. And then surprises themselves.
Stephen was the one who admitted that he's only really recently started with bread. And he went with a caramelised banana and chocolate hazelnut Bubka.
Yes, and I think he was talking about making yeast his pet.
Yes, there was lots of conversations about, because yeast is alive, lots of pet yeasts.
And this is what I have to ask, right? If you're vegan and you eat yeast, are you really vegan? Yeast is a single-celled organism. Now, just because it's not furry and four-legged.
My follow-up conversation to this is, do you walk your yeast? Do you take it for a walk? Do you take it to the park? Do you play catch?
I know people who sing to their sourdough. What?
Unpack!
Sing to your starter. It's a living organism. It's like in Ghostbusters 2.
Are you suggesting that the slime under New York City is a starter?
Yeah, you should have seen the fucking bread that...
so the pink slime...
That Vigo was going to make. Vigo the baker.
Vigo the Carbakian. Here's Vigo. You are like the humming of ovens to him.
We're like the humming of KitchenAids.
I just love the... Okay, so what you're telling me is the bit towards the end...
Oh, sorry, Cuisinart.
The bit towards the end... Cuisinart, let's get the sponsor in. The bit towards the end where the big dome goes over the top. Is that the proving period?
Yes, it is! He was in the middle of proving his bacon. And these bastards come along.
So Vigo wasn't trying to steal a child. He was trying to feed New York.
Yes, he's like, come watch me bake, child. It's going to be great. Your mother will really appreciate it when we surprise her with this delicious baked good the size of Manhattan.
This is a retelling of Ghostbusters 2 that I never foresaw, and I'm here for it. The idea that Vigo was a humble baker trapped in a painting, trying to use a baby as a vessel to bake the perfect bunt.
Yes, the size of Manhattan. That would have fed everyone and kept them all happy. I mean, wasn't there a recession around that time in
Usually. And so realistically, when they then animate the Statue of Liberty, and it comes down obviously and puts the... So was that sort of the torch... It's supposed to burst in and let them all in. But in some ways, was the torch actually helping the baking process? Or...
Well, it should have been there so after the first rise, you know when you got to punch it down?
So that's what Liberty was doing.
Liberty was
punching.
Punch them.
So the Statue of Liberty wasn't actually trying to help stop it.
No.
The Statue of Liberty was trying to knead the dough for the bake.
Until those pesky Ghostbusters arrived.
Went away, yeah, and they ruined everything.
They did. There goes poor Vigo. I hope he gets to bake in heaven.
Anyway, Vincent.
It's my song, my parody song, Bake in Heaven.
Anyway,
like Michael Scott is in heaven.
Anyway, Vincent, who's not Vigo, star shapes. Yes. And he went with a chocolate and orange blossom and with a candied orange peel.
Oh, I love that combo. That was like a Dawn French Terry's chocolate orange.
Yeah, it was,
but in Bubka form.
What I really appreciated too was they did a bit more of a deep dive into their notes this week too. Mm-hmm. And what we found was with Vincent's notes that he had written on the top of it, pace, quick and fast.
I'm not going in. I'll go in the gutter. That's what she said.
That's what she said. No time.
Look, I hope he,
I hope he framed that.
He framed that, and like all his life has that much attention to detail.
We watched an episode of Love It All Listed in the UK.
Like grocery shopping.
We watched an episode of Love It All Listed in the UK the other day.
Yes, we did.
Where Kirsty wrote on a napkin a bunch of instructions, and they framed her instructions.
Well, wouldn't you? It's Kirsty Allsop.
Was part of her part of her instructions. No devolution for Scotland, and make sure that everyone gets back to work and don't worry about that pesky COVID.
From a witchcraft perspective, it's very handy having someone's written handwriting. And particularly Kirsty Allsop, who is, kind of got her nose in the Toriness of it all.
Yes.
It'd be handy to help sway her a little left, just a bit back towards the centre.
Just towards the middle.
Just away from the Thatcherism and towards the caring about the populace. I don't know.
Speaking of people who genuinely care about the populace, Steve. So, all right, there's a lot to unpack here. Let's get into it, shall we?
First of all, we pay respect to his ancestors for who these bakes were made.
Yes, all of them in the various varieties they came in.
Yes.
He starts off by having Anne jump into shot.
Yes.
And she's like, I came over here because I heard there was food coming on. He goes, yes, no, I've got some for you. I've got the cherries and the dark chocolate.
Oh.
And just the look that on Anne's face was,
hello.
Oh, this is the man. And she's like, oh, they're so good. And he's like, so you're judging now, yes? Which was great. Now, what Steve decided to do, and again, this was fantastic with no captions, because you had to piece a lot together.
Yeah.
And what we had to piece together was the fact that it sounds a little bit like a 1950s, 1960s Hanna-Barbera cartoon. A Hanukkah Christmas. A Hanukkah-shaped Christmas. So, together at last.
Yes, it's what Jesus would have wanted. The Jews and the Christians all coming together to live in peace and harmony.
To eat a tree-shaped symbol of Hanukkah.
Yes.
Which is fine.
I'm here for it.
Now, again, it went with dark chocolate, cherries, and pistachios. Which is, again, a good flavour palette. Steve's very good with his flavour profile.
And look, I think that he sets a challenge for a lot of people now to combine as many celebrations as you can into one bubka. Like, there's two, okay? We've got Hanukkah and we've got Christmas. All right, why not throw in St. Patrick's Day? Like, grab a bit of the green from Amy's bake, whack that in, booze it up a bit, bit of whiskey.
I was about to say, whiskey is your answer.
Yeah, there we go.
Like a whiskey-infused Christmas and Hanukkah bubka.
Flag Day.
Wrap it in a flag. There's a lot of these sorts of things that you could do all of those sorts of things. You know what famous day, of course, passed by in the last couple of days?
What?
4 Seasons Total Landscaping Day. Trees! It could have had trees!
Yes.
Right? Or garage doors. Either or. It could have been fantastic. I mean, and by the way, for those who celebrate, happy 4 Seasons Landscaping Day.
A sprinkling of humble pie across the top should do it.
There was no humble pie. What you could have done was just a drip of black to symbolise Rudy's hair dye.
Yes. Just a mild black drizzle down the side. No, we're not calling the podcast mild black drizzle.
No, we're not calling it a mild black drizzle down the side. Anyway, over to Bacrities.
Yes.
So Amanda went with cranberry, pineapple, and cherry Christmas babka with a white chocolate drizzle. Now, in her words, she says it's the only one in PEI. She's not found a babka for sale in PEI.
Which now I feel like there is going to be some babka makers wanting to do a mercy dash. Like there's going to be some, specialist babka bakers just going, oh my god, PEI is bereft of babka. And it's like hands across Canada.
Surely!
Bringing in the babka.
I mean, surely...
They'll do a cultural exchange. She'll give them potatoes and lobster. They'll give her babka.
Surely
it's a beautiful thing.
Surely we've had, like a certain previous baker who's decided that they're going into the babka business. Like, why hasn't Wendy done that yet? I don't get it.
Well, obviously Amanda's the babka baker.
Amanda's the
PEI.
babka baker. Yeah.
You don't want to cross those lines,
Think about if they joined forces.
Oh, Jesus. It's just a big
They couldn't
babka
be
state.
stopped.
It's an island of babka.
Look, much the same way that Manhattan Island was an island of, proving dough with a living yeast, PEI could just be a large babka.
Is this the origin story?
I hope
Do
so.
Wendy and Amanda combine to make Vigo? And all they wanted to do was make a babka bigger, like as big as an island and feed the world?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I really hope so. Can you please let us know, you two, if you plan on combining into
You know
Super
where
Vigo?
the biggest island in the world is? Right here.
Right here.
Where we are.
Anyway.
Miscellaneous City.
Now, Dougal. I love Dougal. Now, Dougal's great fun. They said about, measuring and have you thought about measuring it out and what's your plan? He goes, I'm just going to make it as big as I can make it.
Yep.
Which is fair. And he went with raspberry, pistachio, and white chocolate. And then he, went with was sort of going in a hashtag pattern.
Yeah.
That was becoming hashtag babka.
babka.
Yeah. There were a few hashtags in this episode because later on we
Basket
have
weaving, yeah.
well, but later on we also have hashtag technical, at the end of the technical with Steve.
Was it Technical King?
Yeah. So
King of the Tech?
So in terms of Dougal's, again, Dougal's just hilarious to watch.
Why?
Because he's funny. I mean, he's actually funny. I don't mean he's hilarious to watch in terms of there's something wrong with him.
I'm just like going, sorry, my brain was a bit like, why? Why is he hilarious to
Because
watch?
he's genuinely hilarious in the way that he approaches his baking.
There is a little dry undertone of...
Sometimes it's dry, sometimes it's so overt. Like when he and Anne later on are talking about bread getting a bad rap. They're here to change bread's fortune and bread's raps. And we've talked about this before, and we talk about this every bread week. I like a good white loaf. Mm-hmm. I don't, I'm flavoured breads, yay, blah, 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 but I think the humble white loaf, horrible rap. It gets a horrible rap.
Oh,
it is a horrible rap.
Gets a horrible rap. It does. It's very versatile. It's delicious. And, in the long run with your health, it's really not doing that much.
Yeah.
It's not doing a lot. It's just...
there are people out there who do the whole, humans aren't supposed to eat white bread. Humans aren't supposed to eat a lot of things.
But then...
find the Big Mac in nature. I dare you.
But then this week, this meme came out talking about the difference between Australian bread and American bread. And I don't know if Canadian bread errs more on the side of Australian bread, where it's soft and fluffy. This is the store-bought supermarket stuff. And now I've actually had a look at American bread, and it is this dryish, cardboardy.
And it's sweet.
And it's sweet. It's like... It's
so
just
the
wrong.
meme that came out this week was there was somebody talking about when they were out in Australia and they found this bread in the store that simply said toast. And it was designed to be toasted.
It's just a thicker cut.
Yeah. All that happens is we've got the two main cuts. And I mean, you've probably got the same in Canada, and we'll get inundated with people going, oh, we have that too.
We not only have toast, we have roast bread.
Probably. Anyway, so we were talking about, in the meme is talking about they were from America, they came out to Australia, and they got this bread, which was just toast bread. Mm-hmm. And they were like, they put it in the toaster, and it was absolutely brilliant. It was soft. It was crispy on the outside, obviously, because it was toasted, but then in the inside it was still pillowy and fluffy. And they were like, and since I've come back to America, my life has been weaker for knowing that it exists and I don't have this bread. And I mean, we don't think much of it, though. That's the thing in Australia. No one really thinks about it. I buy a sandwich still.
Yeah. I mean, and then we've got all the cool bakeries with their breads, like everything from your like Vietnamese like style rolls, just so crispy, and I think they're the best. To all the Italian bakes, so your ciabatta. God, Christy, just get words out of your face.
Words are not coming at the moment.
Yeah, sourdoughs. Like, there's so many good bakeries around, and
completely.
Yeah, the delis have good stuff. The only thing we don't have. Good bagels. Yeah,
good bagel. I'm a bandit for a good poppy seed bagel, and it's very hard to get them. No. Unfortunately, we quite often have to resort to like Costco bagels, and they're okay. But of course, they also make you buy them in 2 packs of bagels, and they go off in 2 days.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of freezing bread. No. Now, so this is actually a conversation I do want to have.
Okay.
A lot of people, in Australia, it's quite common for people to buy bread and then they put it in the freezer.
Oh, just wrong.
I've never understood that.
You know what's even one up from that? One of my exes, his family would freeze his sandwiches.
What?
So they would pre-make his school lunch
and freeze it.
Like, I'm talking salad sandwiches, I'm talking ham and tomato. I'm like, things that shouldn't be frozen, like lettuce should not be frozen. It's structural integrity is compromised.
I mean, it's all water anyway, so what happens to it when you freeze it?
It dissolves into a glutinous mess.
That's terrifying. Yeah. Freezing bread is bad enough, because I hate wet bread. Like, wet bread, no, can't do wet bread. But the idea of frozen sandwiches is nuts.
No, it's just like, he's an ex for a reason.
Wouldn't go near him after that. Anyway,
no. Amy. Let's get back to good bread, not...
Amy. So, her savoury one, which was pesto. Now, the level of green that she got in there, it was iridescent. It was all kinds of luminous, bright, green. It looked like there was a toxic sludge, in a bad way.
And I do like that she clarified, no, it's not a natural green from the basil.
I love that Bruno said you could have lied.
No, not that kind of shade.
Bruno's like, is that the natural basil, giving it the green? And she's like, no. And Bruno's like, you could have lied to us. So she went with, again, pesto, sun-dried tomato, and herbs. I also appreciate the fact that we have Canadians, obviously, because we actually had the word herb.
I know, you pronounce the H. It's wonderful.
Again, pet peeve is the herb. There's a H there. Pronounce the H.
What other H's are ignored? They don't go, it's an hippopotamus. Like,
well, some people might.
It's the one bit of Cockney that stuck, apparently.
Herb. And even in Cockney, they don't say herb.
Don't they?
No, because they're...
Herbs and spices.
No, it's herbs and spices. Anyway, now, what I really appreciate as well, while Steve was sort of shaping his ready for the braiding, it looked like a kraken.
It did.
Right. And again, nautical themes popped up in the showstopper. And I thought that maybe Steve's showstopper was impacted by his signature and the kraken had attacked the boat.
Yes.
So, Steve, let us know, did your kraken from the first bake attack the showstopper boat?
Yeah.
And while it was attacking yours, did it also attack Amanda's? Genuine question, need to get an answer for that. Now, I didn't quite catch exactly who said. I think it was Dougal, but I did pick up the comment of somebody. Again, I think it was Dougal, but I might be mistaken. Who put their bunker into the tray, slapped it a bit, and went, "So how do I get this up?"
I think it was Dougal, and
look, it's an age-old question.
After this guy had been there saying, "I'm going to make it as big as I can," I just figured you'd have that skill.
I had it locked in. Now, Elena went with chocolate and walnut babka with orange syrup.
That's a nice combo.
Now, again, all of the combination parts there, the chocolate, the walnut, the orange syrup, all sounds absolutely delightful.
Yeah, and she went for that traditional loaf look.
She did go for a far more traditional look. There were a couple who went for a more traditional look. Dougal's was a bit more traditional in the way that it was shaped. Again, you had a couple. Stephen went with a bit more traditional in shape. So you had a few of those as well. I also loved Amy quenelling ricotta. Not something you see every day. She couldn't remember what it was called. I'm just rolling this into, I don't know what these things are called.
Yes.
And I'm like, everyone's watching MasterChef. It's like, it's a quenelle. It's a quenelle.
quenelle.
We all see this. But it was a really small quenelle. It was a really tiny teaspoon she was quenelling it with.
See, I didn't know quenelling was a thing. I thought it was just a thing my mum did for fancy stuff. Like, I can't remember what she was doing it for. But I remember to...
Please let it be spaghetti bolognese.
Distinctly. No, God.
Please let her be quenelling spaghetti.
Please don't make me vomit. Okay. We had to have spaghetti bolognese every single Wednesday growing up. And...
I've only just got you to the point where you can have it.
I know, so let's not mention it now.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
So, the judging.
Could have been...
So, Elena had a good shine on the top of it. They said some of it, however, looked a bit pale. It was underbaked in parts as well. Mm-hmm. But it did have a good orange flavour, so at least the orange had come through.
Yeah.
Amanda's looked very festive.
Mm-hmm.
I said it was.
As you'd hope.
You'd hope so. It was
for
a festive
Christmas
thing.
wreath.
Yeah. Even bake.
You don't want like a dismal wreath.
Now,
like just a sad wreath.
Now, Kyla introduced us to what I think might be an independent band on PEI. Because Kyla's words were that I can't taste the pineapple, but I do get it as part of the cranberry experience. And are they
fusion jazz?
Are they an independent band or are they a Cranberries tribute band from PEI called the Cranberry Experience?
Oh, it's got to be a cranberry tribute band. Do 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 do.
Ode to an Island.
Yes.
My island. My island has lobsters.
I like how we go for one of their more obscure things. It's not like
we didn't go to zombie. We went to Ode to My Family. Anyway, because I mean, zombie's too easy. You've got to go. You've got to go deeper cuts.
Linger.
Yeah. You hope the flavour would linger. Anyway, but as I said, though, the cranberry was tart, but it was very creamy and it was a good flavour overall. And they said the pineapple was part of the cranberry experience. Dougal, they said he had a very complex...
It's when they add a little bit of ruster to the cranberries.
Very complex design overall. That's right. Dougal was complex. Stephen had the more traditional. And Dougal's complex design looked amazing. Mm-hmm. But he didn't prove it for long enough.
Reggae, not ruster. Oh my God.
But he didn't prove it for long enough.
No, he didn't.
And so as a result, it was underproved and then it was underbaked. That was a bit of a problem for Dougal. And Dougal had a couple of bumpy moments in this episode, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Amy, they just said it was stunning. They said it cut nicely, and Kyla really loved the flavour profiles. And again, that was where Bruno commented on the green and was like, you could have lied and told us it was natural pesto. Steve, they said Christmassy, which again, it was a Christmas theme. I hope he went with that. They said it was underproved. It was tasty, and the flavours were good. And that's the thing, even when Steve has a problem, usually with a rigidity of a bake, the flavour usually carries him through a bit.
Yep.
They said it needed to be more pillowy, however. It was very flat.
It was more of a blanket than
a pillow. It was more blanket or comforter.
Yes, just a nice, like throw rug.
Yes, it was throw ruggy.
Yes, you could just put it on the couch for a festive touch this season.
For a festive throw. That's what she said. Vincent, they said it was a very good-looking babka, but it was compact, and this is where they suggested that maybe his babka was crushed under the weight of the chocolate. It's not a phrase you hear every day.
No, and I feel like that's something that kind of encapsulates 2020, 2021. Like the lockdowns,
We've all been crushed under the weight of chocolate.
We've all been crushed under the weight of chocolate. If you can't eat chocolate, then insert your, equivalent here. Both metaphorically and literally.
The flavours, however, of Vincent's were very good.
Yes.
And no wonder, it was full of chocolate, apparently. It was crushing it. Stevens looked amazing, was very tasty, and Bruno says that he absolutely nailed the brief.
Yes. Do you think that they would have served, crushed by chocolate at Death by Chocolate? Remember that restaurant back in the 90s? I don't know if they had them overseas. I don't think they did.
No, but Death by Chocolate's a dessert normally anyway. So, you have Crushed by Chocolate, which is a version of Death by Chocolate, but it's just more chocolate on top of it.
It's more of a Salem witch experience. Sorry. Just, you go in, you get I don't know,
Accused?
Accused. You have a bunch of teenage girls, fainting around you.
It's an experience. It's a Heston restaurant.
It's a Heston restaurant.
It's a Heston restaurant. You go to order the dessert, and suddenly teenage girls come out and point at you,
and then you're dragged away, and then chocolate's piled on you, but not to like kill you, but just
to enjoy the experience.
Yes, to really immerse you.
Because Heston loves his immersive experiences. Anyway, we get to the technical.
He thought that was a better way because the trials with the steak.
Yeah, the burning didn't quite work. We're only burning one arm. They
only lost 3 apprentices in their attempts to make that work.
I'll like Heston cares if he loses apprentices. Anyway, the technical. So the technical is boloba. So boloba, otherwise known as pineapple buns. So, and again...
No pineapple.
No pineapple, which just everyone was a bit like... there was a great gif of like Amanda just commenting on the confusion that there was no pineapple in a pineapple bun. And I'm not going to lie, the first time I ever... And I've seen them a few times. And the first time I ever saw boloba, I didn't get them.
No.
Because I legitimately was thinking, there's pineapple in that, and I don't know if I want a bun with the pineapple built through the middle of it. So I didn't get it.
But it just turns out to be a type of bread roll.
Yeah, it's bread with, again, the crackling on top.
Yeah.
So I was instantly thinking that Amy was going to go really well because she made crackling the other day.
Yeah.
So...
but there were instructions, but I did like that there is a nod to, is there enough instructions now? Like Anne going up to Amanda, having a little chat about that. Because it is quite noticeable. And there wasn't a lot. There wasn't anything about the shade of colour for the crackling. There wasn't...
Yeah, because you had to dye it the yellow. But how much yellow you had to use.
And the moisture content.
The moisture content. The bake time wasn't really there.
Yeah.
I thought that the proving time wasn't there. It just said to roll it into a dough. They didn't tell you that the dough was going to be very wet early on. I loved the confusion when they announced it. Everyone looked around and went, what the hell? What the hell was this? And like, most people were like, I haven't seen this, I haven't heard of it. Stephen had them, had never made them. Vincent, the same thing, said that he'd had them, obviously, but hadn't made them.
Yeah.
So they hadn't made the boloba.
But Alina made one of the what's it called? The cardinal sins of
she really
technical, which is, and particularly with Canadian, they're very specific about what they're telling you to do.
Yeah, your methodology is usually rigid.
Yeah, so, what they do tell you to do, that you should do, hand knead it. And she's freaked out with the wetness. I mean, I get it too. I'd just be like, I'm not touching.
Because that initial phase,
yeah.
Before you get to that bit, because the initial phase, they start mixing it, and the first lot of mixing they show you, because there's an initial phase where you could use the dough hook, but after that, you got a hand knead.
Yeah.
And what I found fascinating about the putting it together is watching them they start with it, and it was runny, and it was
gloopy and sticky, and
it was horrible. It stuck to
everywhere.
Everything.
Pieces were coming apart.
And at that point, I'm not making it. No. I'm going, I'll buy them. But yeah, Elena's like, it's sticking. I can't make this work.
Yeah.
So.
But those who stuck with it. Yeah, and really got into it, that silky pillowiness. Like, I remember seeing Stephen's dough and just thinking, ooh, that looks divine. Like, I love it when dough gets that beautiful, just silky, smooth, rounded, pillowy texture. I'm just using words that are already being used.
But it was true. I get what you mean, though, because for me, it started off being a really uglyish bake.
Yeah.
And they don't look that impressive. And then as they got more and more into the kneading, the dough looked really good. But it took a long time to get there.
But then you understand how then the texture comes out in that bun, because you've got the condensed milk in there, and so it's got that sweetness to it and that lightness and that fluffiness to it. And when we're seeing the final products, I think it was Stephen's that was perfectly cooked all the way through, you can just see that amount of love that's gone into it. It has a beautiful result at the end.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing too, is that it's the result that comes out at the end. But as you were saying before with Elena, she decided towards the end of it that she couldn't hand knead it. She wanted to move it faster, so she decided to throw it back into the machine.
And that was a critical error.
And if you go through at the end when we get to the judging, obviously there was the rise hadn't happened, the dough had gone a bit dry. You've got to leave that moisture in there and not beat the moisture sort of out of it.
Yeah.
The proving, it had been sort of all that air had been knocked out. So they were very flat with and then when she put it in for the proving, she didn't get the rise.
I just have to think that there's something about the warmth of your hands and the way you're moving the dough and how the gluten's developing with it would be different to a kneading stick in a machine.
A kneading stick?
Yeah, a kneading I can't think of the thing.
No, we're going to call it a kneading stick now.
All right, it's a kneading stick. Oh.
Everybody get your kneading sticks ready?
Yes. 1, 2, 3, kneading stick.
So, it was the thing was that it's the Tangyong paste at the start that makes it work. And so that's why it's also so runny at the start. Because it's doing the Tangyong.
Which is like a roux, isn't it?
Yeah, basically it's flour and water.
Yeah.
And it's flour and water paste that goes into the dough. So, and that's why it's so gloopy at the start, because you've got this warmed up flour and water.
And then that condensed milk added
goes
to
in.
it, so it's just a lot of
but
lot of lube.
What I found
Making a wet dough.
What I found fascinating about it is when they finished with the bread, when they were doing the judging.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to be that aerated and pillowy inside.
Really? I did.
Because of the textures and those things like that, I was a bit like, I don't know how this is going to sort of... I felt it might be a bit gloopy still. But no, it had beautifully sprung up and aerated. It was very fluffy.
Because a lot of the moisture had escaped, so I presume that's what...
I mean, you can't have too much moisture escape, otherwise you end up, unfortunately, with what Elena got, which was dry. The other thing was, they did have to make their own butter for half of them.
Yes. Well, while you're waiting for proofing to go on, you may as well be keeping them busy with a bit of butter.
Now, the other thing we need to talk about outside of the challenge itself. Have we ever seen any challenge in Bake Off with more variable weather?
I know. Turn around 1 minute, it's sunny. Turn around the next minute, it's pissing down with rain.
And then it got sunny again. And then it rained a bit more. Then the sun came out and everything dried out at the end when they were finishing. And then by the time they got to the judging, it was so heavy they had to do the outside shot of the rain to explain why there was this background droning while Bruno and Kyla were semi-yelling the judging to them. Let's look at the first one! Because it was so
loud,
heavy and so loud. What the hell was that rain? Kyla put up a photo on Instagram of them filming the buns, and she's like, it's the most crazy day of weather I think we've ever seen. Like, the crew's out there going, film the buns, it's dry. Oh no, it's raining, go back inside. No, now it's dry again, film the buns. Imagine having to keep running back and forward with camera material and buns.
Just imagine, like, the people carrying umbrellas, one for Kyla's hair, one for Bruno, one for the buns.
Everyone's got an umbrella. Everyone's got one.
You know what they need? Do you remember back in the olden days? I don't know if you... But the little
how far back are we going in the olden days?
I'm going back to the 80s. Like, when, like, my aunt had a lot of them, but they were mostly to keep the flies off, but those little net...
Yep.
Umbrellas.
The little net umbrellas you put over serving platters to stop flies from getting in there.
Yeah.
Those, but like with more rigid structure.
Yeah, like you'd need it with like an actual plastic coating over the top, like a waterproof coating.
Don't think Canadians had those, and you know what? You lost out.
They might have.
Because we like as a child, I absolutely adored those.
Well, that's how you knew it was going to be a big family meal. Like, that was for Christmas.
Yeah, if there was a big family meal, what you would get would be these
Australia Day,
mesh umbrellas.
Invasion Day.
Yeah, mesh umbrellas. And they were about the size of a large dish. And the idea was that you put the umbrella up and put it over the food to stop the flies. Never worked. Flies always got under them.
Really?
Always got under them.
Not
you know
ours.
what? Maybe you know why. Because if you ever had a look at them, they actually did like the proper pattern on the bottom, so flies could get under the bottom lip.
God,
wasn't very
enterprising flies.
Yeah, look, if you're a fly, you are determined. If you're an Australian fly...
Particularly if you're going after my aunt's potato salad, like, that was pretty good.
If you're an Australian fly, you got to work for it. You know you've got to work for it.
Danger around every
This is a climate where, you know, first of all, competition is fierce.
Yeah.
Like, that's the first thing you need to remember. Competition in Australia is fierce for flies, because there's so many.
Yeah.
But secondly, outside of the competition being so fierce for flies, the hazards are very real.
Yes.
Like, we all carry fly spray.
Yeah. Good old
this is-
Mortine.
This is a thing. So,
Back in the... Let's get back in the bake-off.
let's get back to the judging, shall we?
Yes.
So, Stephen, they said fairly consistent. The rise was a bit more spread than lift. Lift, then spread. Lift, then spread. No, he went spread, no lift. Hard in parts, soft in others. That's what she said. Nice sponginess.
That's also
That's what she said. Dougal. he got the effect in some of them on the crackling, but not all. There was a very even bake, however, and the texture and flavour was quite nice. Steve was a lot closer on colour. They smelt good, and the flavour and texture were great. Amy had nice crackling in parts and a good combination of flavours. Elena, as we said before, unfortunately, was overbaked, no rise. The dough was very dry, and it was crumbling.
Yeah.
Then Amanda, consistent size, a very good look overall, and the flavour was good. And Bruno's only complaint was the butter needed salt.
Ugh.
Of course Bruno whinges about the butter.
Yeah, you're like, your buns are fine, but hear me out with the butter.
Yeah, hear me out with the butter. Look, the bread is amazing, but let's talk about the butter. And Vincent, they said they were a bit small. They felt a bit dry as well on the outside, and they were very sweet. So, Elena was 7th, Vincent was 6th, Stephen was 5th, Dougal was 4th, Amy was 3rd, Amanda was 2nd, and once again, 3 out of 4, Steve wins another technical.
JFC, Steve, like that is this a record? We're in
rare air.
We're in rare air. Like him and Andre, imagine those two going at it for the technicals. Like that.
He just even when he's not sure of the bake, he just seems to know the general techniques, which is what the point of the technical is. Even if you've never made something before, do you understand the general technique of what you're doing?
Now, Stephen, I have to know, have you been punished by your ancestors since this bake?
That was really cool, where he's like, Steve was like, I feel like this bake, the first bake was my ancestors, the second was yours. And then Stephen was like, yes, I'm worried that with the rain, that's my ancestors crying. So the showstopper, the bread basket.
This is cool. It's an oldie, but a goodie.
But it was done
solid.
This was done well though, because quite often they just do a bread structure on British. With the bread basket idea, they sort of they restricted it a little bit because they wanted them to sort of have the two kinds of bread. Yeah. Whereas in British, when they do this, it tends to get a bit crazy and out there, and people try to do far too much by giving them the two breads plus a vessel.
Yep.
And then defining a vessel broadly as anything that could be used to carry the bread.
No, I do like that Steve and Amanda took it literally a vessel.
A vessel.
Like a ship.
You know, the vessel with
a boat.
The vessel with the pestle is the brew that is true. But I like they brought up the cornucopia, the knapsack. Where did you get that? I don't know. So...
I mean, if you throw a couple of handles, like, backpack handles on what's his oven.
Oh, look, if anyone could make one, Amy could do it.
Yeah.
We'll come to Amy in a moment because I'm going to spend time.
Waxing lyrical.
I've got time. I've got notes. I'm going to give you a heads up, everyone. And it's not because I dislike other bakers here, but the notes on the instructions as to what people made for me are, and Christy can see my notes. They're single lines for everyone, and then Amy's got a paragraph. To be fair, Amy had a paragraph of things going on. Let's start with Amanda, because we need to start with everybody's favourite PEI bread boat.
Claws out, people.
Now, claws out. Claws out for Baker Teas, everybody. Claws out. Look, we'll mention she made the rosemary colour, first of all. We get a return of one of our favourite breads.
Colour.
We get potato flatbread. That was great, wonderful, fantastic. Right, to hell with that. The milk bread lobster claws.
Now, what I love about this, right, it is almost a cob loaf because it's a dip inside a bread container.
Now, again, we got to name these bakes ourselves a lot of the time because there was no name on them. I called this Ode to Zoidberg. Because it looked like Dr. Zoidberg had turned up from Futurama. Hooray, I'm helping!
Now, she dyed the claws with beetroot.
Which made them, again, more Zoidberg.
Yeah,
more Zoidberg. More Zoidberg! So, yeah, all I could think was Zoidberg. When I saw them. But it looked so good.
Yeah.
Like, of individual... Like, when we'll go through all of these bakes, obviously... And there's the composites, and we'll again, we're going to talk about Amy in a minute. But the composite is one thing, but in terms of individual baked items in this challenge, those lobster claws were absolutely sensational. And I would happily, if I thought the lobster would keep for a trip to Australia, I'd be asking for some.
Look, What I'd love to see next is, so you got the lobster claws, right? And then go full Lovecraftian horror and do like tentacle breadsticks and...
I think back to the Kraken.
Yeah, Kraken breadsticks. What else? Like just a gigantic Cthulhu. Oh, like the priests. Like your basket is actually the ritual circle of priests and like sacrifice in the middle and just all the claws coming up to grab the sacrifice. Just going a little bit nuts.
That could be interesting.
Yeah, like a lot of the, like, you know, let's take the racism out of it, as H.P. Lovecraft wasn't to do, but you know, we're there. Now, the other vessel we had was Steve's vessel.
Yeah,
and I liked that his really did look like a Viking kind of, like, I know it was like a love boat to his wife and ode to his wife.
I was disappointed.
The love boat.
I was disappointed that Steve did not make a mini Captain Steubing, and all I wanted was a mini Steubing. Think of this, right? You've got a white uniform, so there's a white loaf there.
Yeah.
You could use a cob for the hat. The teeth could be individual. He made Grassini. Mm-hmm. He could have used individual Grassini for the big smiling teeth on Steubing. You could have done the Love Boat and just made a Captain Steubing head.
Now, who were some of the famous, guest stars on the Love Boat?
Oh, everyone went on to the Love Boat. I'm sure Dean Martin was on there at one point.
Carol Channing.
Carol Channing.
Carol Channing, come on.
Some people sing, some people act. I play Hello Dolly. That's one for Roberto. That's just for Roberto. So yeah, he could have done all the celebrities on the Love Boat and Captain Steubing. Instead, he made a Viking longship is what he made.
Which I appreciate, and you know, as a mad fan of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I would have...
As a historian, I don't appreciate it, of course. Why would I care? Now, pumpernickel onion rolls, rosemary parmesan buns, they went really well, by the way.
Yeah.
They were probably...
the standout.
They were in my top 5. I've said the individual components. They were in my top 5. I really loved the look of those, and at the very least...
one of the lobster claws.
At the very least...
Double fisting.
At the very least, Steve, I require...
It's a Canadian term.
I know. At the very least, Steve, I require a recipe. So we then went... We're going to jump around a bit rather than in order because, well, we don't do things in order anyway, but I also want to leave the Amy conversation.
Just channeling him to Cypress Hill.
Completely.
Jump around. Yes. Better than crisscross.
Actually, that was House of Pain.
Oh, it was House of Pain. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, no, Cypress Hill would have been insane in the membrane.
That's right.
Insane in the brain.
That is who I'm actually channeling.
Yeah, you are. Stephen. So Stephen went with the garlic bread basket, which I'm a fan of. Stephen was clever insofar as he went for a bake that smelled amazing.
So you got the garlic bread basket, then he did the pizza rolls.
Yes.
Because cheesy bread.
And then the savoury cinnamon buns.
Yes.
That was a really clever idea. Mm-hmm. I thought it was genius.
Yeah.
So, again, it just smelled...
And just making Kyla happy, you know. It was an ode to his sister.
It was fantastic. It was ode to his sister / Kyla.
Yeah.
Now, bakeries. We need to talk about Amanda because she had a quote.
Oh,
and we need our bakeries moment. We didn't get one.
Oh.
Now,
gather around the pavilion steps, people.
Now, especially for people who...
Don your toga.
If you would like to...
Made out of
sail,
a flatbread.
If you would like to sail, you need to take up the wisdom of the bakeries from PEI, who said, and I quote directly here, "You always want to bake your canoe out of very stretchy, very gluteny bread." Here endeth the lesson.
I mean, I've watched, the traditional making of canoes by Indigenous Australians.
Gluten.
I've seen one guy carve one out. I think he was from Indonesia. I've seen him carving one out. But who knew that
gluten was what they were lacking?
Like, don't worry about killing the trees. Just
get your glutens on.
Stretchy glutinous.
Dougal went with poppy seed bagels, and again, I mentioned I'm a bandit for a poppy seed bagel. Now these went solid to the point where Bruno was like, "I'm not a weightlifter." However, his pecan caramel sticky buns. If ever, I mentioned my top 5, these are in my top 5. If ever a single element saved somebody in a bake, Dougal's pecan sticky buns saved him this week.
Look,
because they were incredible.
If I could dive into Dougal's sticky buns, I think I'd die a happy death. Like, that just looked delicious.
There you go, Dougal, drop us a line. Drop us a line. I know you're going to like hearing that. Elena, so she went with the sweet brioche roses, the cream cheese daisies, and the garlic bread nest. Now, again, the cream cheese daisies just made me get into ween a little bit. Push the cream cheese daisies and make them come up. Push the cream cheese daisies and make them come up, which would have been handy if they'd risen properly and improved. She had it look...
It just...
Poor Elena. It one thing went wrong at the start, and it just sort of... If you heard that yelp, by the way, that wasn't one of us in pain. That's our cat.
She's obviously a big Elena fan.
We mentioned Elena. She jumps in. I'm here. I've got opinions. What's your opinion, Sonny? No, she's got nothing to say now. But in terms of, with Elena, one thing went wrong in the first bake, and I think it just sort of started to snowball on her a little bit.
Yeah, and look, there wasn't... Okay, so the technical was a real... Disaster. But the technical usually doesn't kill you. You know, the technical can be, not the deciding factor. But it just... Everyone else's bakes were just a little bit better or had a strong redeeming feature like Dougal's sticky...
Sticky buns.
Sticky buns.
I feel like one of the things that we've seen is there is, and I've spoken to, and I'm not going to name anybody, but I've spoken to other bakers who have talked about the fact that the competition this year is really at a high level.
Yeah,
like everything they did was brilliant, and so even the things that didn't quite work, the concept was still amazing.
Absolutely, and what did she get put down with in her showstopper? I'm sorry, your brioche is a bit dry.
Yes, and
we'll talk about that. It looks pretty.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about Vincent before we talk about Amy. Okay. That knitting theme and those dinner roll cats. As Kyla said in her judging, your attention to detail and precision.
Yeah, because it looked really easy just snipping the tops, but you've got to get it in the right spot and the right depth. Otherwise... Your cats will just be looking like they're all over the shop. They'll be looking less like, Andrew Lloyd Webber's cats. Actually, no, they'll...
More like Andrew Lloyd Webber's cats.
More like the film version of Andrew Lloyd Webber's cats.
Nobody wants to look like that. Did you see, by the way, on the weekend there's a petition online?
What, bring back the buttholes?
No, not that. No.
I'm so glad, Vincent, you didn't add buttholes to your cats.
No, James Corden's been mentioned in another musical version. I can't remember what it was. And basically the petition online is no.
He really is the death knell for musicals, isn't he?
He's what happens when mediocre white men are told they have talent. Yeah. And I say this as a semi-mediocre white man. So, moving on. But no, actually, not moving on for a minute. I want to talk a bit more about Vincent's knitting theme. That was incredible.
Oh, and the choices.
And this goes to show us as well. Like, Vincent was in trouble going into this challenge.
Yep.
And then he does that, and you're like, no, this is a really close competition this year, because Vincent, I've always had Vincent up near the top in terms of where I think he's going to be. And then he was like, this week, I'm like, oh no, he's in trouble. Oh no. And then he does this, and you're like,
oh,
no,
he's safe.
He's fine.
Okay.
He's fine. There was not even a question about it. Going in, there was a big question. There was no question after it was done. The detail that he puts into his bakes when he gets into that mode is
and
incredible.
The precision and it's just the clarity with the story he's telling. Like that was you wouldn't have thought it was anything else. But
I don't think
kittens in a basket.
I don't think there's a better story.
P.S. If you want to send me a basket of kittens, I'm happy for that.
I don't think there's a better
live ones, please.
I don't think there's a better
red ones are okay too.
I don't think there's a better story.
Don't send me the knitting. I'm really terrible at knitting.
I don't think there's a better storyteller inside the pavilion than Vincent when he gets on his game and he's got a story to tell.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a better storyteller in there. And that's, again, when we're talking about artistic creation, that's important. And this is artistic creation. Speaking of artistic creation.
Jesus.
Here we are.
Bacon Christ.
Jesus, bacon Christ. So, and I love the conversation where Anne says to her, so the level of creativity, you're artistic? No, not really. Just in this. I've come in here and this has just sort of done it for me. So Amy decides to do a mini oven because...
What else are you going to keep your bread in?
Of course you do. Now, she's like, it's hard to get the bread into a cube shape because it just wants to sort of get splodgy. And I'm like... She says that like making large cubed breads is a thing. And I'm not talking about loaves. I'm talking about cubes for storage. She says this like this is an everyday thing. It's hard. Not impossible, hard.
Yeah. And if you're going to make a handle for your cube, so you've sorted out the cube problem,
So the
right?
cube is Vietnamese baguette.
Yum.
Like
I was saying before, Vietnamese rolls are, I think, the superior rolls.
Yeah,
They're
again-
crispy on the outside, fluffy in the middle.
again, the
And when you get a good banh mi, Jesus, your
again
bloody life is
colonization in
perfect.
Vietnam. They adapted the really important things like French baking,
Exactly.
and then made it their own beautifully.
They went, haha, you thought you'd oppress us? Well, fuck you.
Yeah.
We've taken your cooking.
And then we've beaten you in
Made-
a war.
made it better.
Scallion milk buns and coconut milk buns inside, and they sounded really nice. But the door handle,
The door handle, so she's like, what am I going to make a door handle out of? I know, a pig in a blanket.
and again, and then we get the on top. You get the hot plates, and you get the towel.
And then she makes the duck pancake.
Yeah, the duck pancakes to use as that, and the tea towel is hanging off the handle. It was just the level of detail.
Like you could package those up and sell them as Christmas toys, you know?
Completely.
They'd be the toy of the year, you know, not only can you bake, you can eat it.
It's an easy bake oven. It's an Eaty bake oven. Anyway,
Eaty bake oven.
um,
And there's our episode title.
the judging. So, Amy. Kyla just stops and goes, Amy, and pauses for a very long time, looks at her, starts laughing and goes, are you kidding? Now,
Yep.
what became important, though, was after they got past how amazing the concept was, every one of the breads was perfect.
Yep.
And Bruno was like, no, that's crispy and fluffy at the same time. That texture on that coconut is amazing. This is fantastic. The breads, and that is so complex. And she just seems like nonplussed by the whole, like, oh, wow, okay, that went really well.
Oh, I didn't get the pregnancy joke.
Stephen, it smelt delicious.
Maybe she could make it for her sister now that she's spoiled.
Yeah, we never got an answer.
engagement.
Somebody give us an answer.
Now that she's
Spoiled the
possibly
engagement. Now she's spoiling their
Spoiled
baby
your
announcement. Think about it. If you're her sister, now if you are doing a baby announcement,
You're like, God damn it!
what else am I going to
Amy.
do? I had an oven ready. Anyway.
You know, I'd like it. I'd like it if she predicted a lottery win.
Oh,
That'd be handy.
That'd be brilliant.
Bring that on to
So,
your sister.
Stephen, they said it smelled delicious. Again, that's why he went with pizza rolls and garlic bread. The weaving on the basket was really good.
Yeah.
The pizza buns were very flavourful, but they needed a little bit more baking. The top was good, but when you flipped them over, they were a bit soft and they still sort of sprung back on the bottom, so you needed a bit more baking there just to make it a bit more solid. Steve. Now, poor Steve. He had some burnt bread,
Yeah.
and some of it was collapsing.
Well, look, it was obviously a funerary Viking ship.
Well, he could have, again, like when
Just
Amanda
come out
was...
with a flaming arrow of bread.
When
Get
Amanda
one of your
was-
Grassinis.
When Amanda was talking about
Twing!
when Amanda was talking about the idea that her one was a shipwreck at one point, Steve should have adapted, and as they've gone to judge it, gone 1 second, whoosh, and set fire to it, and then blown it out and gone Viking burial bread.
And just started with the... Like just some Viking
So-
singing. Some dirge.
There were some proving issues as well, but then they got to the
No,
tasting.
dirge is Scottish, isn't it? I don't know.
So then they got to the tasting, and the caraway flavour was really nice in the bread, and the rosemary bread had a really good texture. So again, the thing is that even when he had some weaknesses in some of the techniques on the baking, the flavours still carried him through.
Yeah.
Amanda. Now, her boat was deflating a little bit, so obviously she didn't work the gluten properly.
No.
Take your own advice, Bakeries. Take your own advice.
More gluten.
Yeah, more gluten. The potatoes were tasty, but Bruno, as a Frenchman, argued cream was required.
Of course.
I don't blame him. I would have wanted that too for the
She
potato
just
bread.
made some extra butter to slab on the side.
But what he did have, though, was the lobster claws. And again, watching them bite into those, you could see in the middle. It just
Looked amazing.
they're making me hungry. Then we had Dougal. They looked great. The bagels were consistent but very tight, and Bruno's like, I can't really pull them apart. But then the sticky buns, and they just said those sticky buns were amazing. And like Kyla's like, they're so good, like you've got to lick your fingers while you're eating them. They're that sticky.
Yep.
Elena, she had a lot of decoration around the outside, and they said, look, what you made is beautiful, but the decoration is so far overboard.
There was a lot of floral around
a lot of
that.
greenery around it.
Yeah.
Like, no, just focus on that. They said the garlic had great flavour. The brioche was unfortunately a bit dark and it was very dry. And dry brioche is not a good thing. Vincent. Now, again, Kyla's response was, wow, followed by, it's cute. And it is. Like, the ears on the cats were good. The spring was great. Now, what I love when you go, the spring on the buns, and they push it in and Vincent goes, meow.
My cat does that too when you push it.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Come here, Somni, I'll show you.
Good flavour. And they said that the yarn ball was clean all around. So, and that's the thing. They keep, when Vincent is on, clean. Mm-hmm. It's a clean bake. It's a clean structure.
Yeah.
He's just so thorough and precise.
Yep.
So you've got a range, right? Steve is a bit more, not messy, but Steve is a bit more rustic and flavour is the king. Mm-hmm. You've got Vincent, who has very good flavour, but is very precise. Mm-hmm. You've got Amy, who has really good flavours and is just a creative bomb.
Yep.
I mean, and Amanda is
solid,
just consistent. There's not really a bad moment there.
No.
And then you get Dougal, who has these flashes, and same with Stephen. Dougal and Stephen have flashes of absolute brilliance, and then there's one element somewhere that sort of brings them back a little bit. So all of that was happening. Elena is really good at design, but unfortunately some of the rigidity of the bakes hasn't worked to her advantage.
Yeah, and the technical, I think, is what really put her at the bottom of the group.
And so overall, Amy wins Star Baker, and that was not a surprise.
Yeah, I like Amanda sounding sarcastic, like, oh, really? Like,
oh, wow. And unfortunately...
but in a kind way. Like,
unfortunately, the Impossible Princess goes home, back to her home in the UK, of course, because we know that the Impossible Princess lives in the UK, doesn't live in Australia. No. I mean, she's in Canada, because she's Canadian, obviously. It's okay, Kylie, your secret's safe with us.
Yes.
But, yeah, so poor Elena. It's the end of Elena in there, but obviously, again, some really creative bakes and some really good designed bakes. And they looked really good, so...
And, Kylie's done a lot in her career, and... I like that she took time out
to bake.
She's like, I can't tour during COVID.
But she also knows that she doesn't need to win Bake Off because, her fans love her anyway.
She got to do a duet with Jason Donovan. Isn't that really winning at life?
Isn't that enough?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Anyway, that'll do us for this week. Mm-hmm. Thank you, everyone, for listening, as always. We've had really good feedback on all the podcasts. Thank you to all the people, by the way, who sent me a message to comment on when they yawned last week when we put the yawn in there.
Oh, no.
Because I asked for feedback. The first person who gave us feedback on that, by the way, Larry, who was like, of course I yawned the second that happened. Thank you for some of the feedback. We got some really cool videos around the Mounted Moose Patrol stuff. That was fantastic. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate the interaction. We love the messages that we get. Thank you for listening, everyone. We will be back next week to talk Pie Week.
Ooh, oh yeah.
That's going to be fantastic.
Yep.
But until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Christy.
And we will catch you all later.
Lifting me higher and higher.
Higher!